So let's bring him in right now. Let's welcome John Wu, president of Avalabs. John, hello.
Hello. And Firestorm,
welcome.
Sorry I didn't see you in the office, but I'm glad you got to visit and see some of the excitement inside.
Absolutely. It was great. I mean, perfect setup for the amazing speed and the quality of the shipping that the Avalabs teams, does. So quite happy to visit. It was awesome. We'll see you next time, hopefully.
Likewise. Awesome.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. We appreciate you having here. Generally I watch you on, CNBC or various other channels. It's quite an honor to have you here as well. We truly appreciate your time and joining and, giving us a little bit of your perspective for our audience, of course.
Cool.
Definitely.
So how's everything going?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Fire.
Yeah, I was just saying, how's everything going?
Everything's going well. I mean, there's a lot of operating momentum, lots of great things happening. We continue to build. I mean, we have great partnerships. You guys coming in, seeing us. You tell me, how does it look like it was going?
I think everything is going quite well. I know we're deep in the bear. Lots of things occurring. The latest news, Silvergate, etc. I think the dominoes are still falling, to be honest with you. But my personal perspective, and maybe this is a little bit of me being a maxi, but again, incredible amount of things happening on the Avalabs and Avalanche front. And I'm sure we'll touch on some of those throughout our conversation. But it looks good from our perspective, right? We're building a lot of other projects that, have been around for a long time, are continuing to build. We're quite bullish, personally, as well as a project. So
that's right. And what's surprising is, as bad as Silvergate is, it's surprising the markets are relatively steady and holding up well. I mean, I think what it's telling you is that a lot of the tourist money that came in has kind of already moved out. And the deep crypto believers are still in there. They may not be buying or increasing, but they're still in there. So you're not seeing the dramatic effect. Let's not downplay Silvergate, though. They are the on-ramps. They are legitimate on-ramp, real institutions who need to get access to space. They were using Silvergate. So every day we're seeing another on-ramp disappear. And when there's more use cases and more utility and more excitement, these on-ramps need to come back somehow. And personally, I'm American, so I hope they come back in the US. So great developers and great investors can do it in the US as opposed to elsewhere in the world.
Definitely. John, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to just rewind a little bit and kind of go through, we do a little segment called The People Behind the Projects. And obviously, like we were saying, you're an incredibly well-known guy. We see you on television all the time. I'm a little starstruck right now, truth be told, you know what I mean? But anyways, we'd love to get more of your background for our new audience, our new listeners. Just hear about where you come from, how you got into crypto and how you became president of Avalabs, and kind of what drives you to stay inspired in our space and even beyond that.
That's awesome. Please, thank you for the flattery, but I'm just like everyone else. I was in the traditional finance world. I was an investor as a hedge fund investor in technology and a private equity investor in technology. I always love emerging trends and new technologies that can possibly change my life or change people's lives.
Sure.
I got into crypto first as an investor in the 2010s, more like 14, 15 after the Mt. Gox crash. At first, I was a skeptic as well. I went to early meetups, didn't really see what it was all about, and thought the people were a little bit crazy. But then as you dug into it in 2014, for me, that was really just Bitcoin back then. It didn't matter what I thought. I realized if you just count the wallets that were being created, whether it be on Coinbase or addresses on chain, it was undeniable the amount of momentum of enthusiasm of individuals had for this. So that's when I started becoming more excited about the space and becoming an investor in the space. But the operator side of me really got turned on in 2017. The crypto kitties, the ICO boom. I was like, wow, there's actually now utility. It's no longer just a commodity store value. How big is the gold market and what percentage of the gold market can Bitcoin capture? And then I looked at it, having come from traditional finance, this ICO crowdfund mechanism can be a great way to provide access to alternative assets, whether it be funds or back then private securities like Airbnb or Uber, to everyone. And I recognize you need to do it in a compliant way. So my first gig in this space as an operator was CEO of the digital assets group at Shares Post, where we had an ATS, we had broker-dealer licenses, worked with the SEC, FINRA, all the agencies and self-regulating bodies, and created a mechanism that was compliant and able to trade private securities in a tokenized manner. But what I realized was, especially with CryptoKitties as an example, the scale and speed there and the cost back then in that iteration of call it the Web3 world, which wasn't called Web3 back then, was just not there yet. The technology was not there yet. Like watching a Netflix streaming movie back in 1995, not possible, just not possible.
Right.
And I'm parallel to recognizing that. I was also, I did my undergrad at Cornell, and I was on the blockchain advisory group with Eamon Gunseer. Firestorm mentioned him earlier, one of the greatest, most brilliant minds in the space and possibly in technology as a whole. And he was already solving some of these issues. So, he asked me to join in 2019, late 2019, early 2020. We were 10 people in a room, mostly Cornell engineers and me and one other business person. And today I'm very proud to say we have a great team of 250 people all over the world. We're one of the top blockchains out there. We're also known not only as understanding the crypto native world, but we're also professionals and do things, I would say, the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, 100% agreed. My background is traditional finance as well, obviously not as comprehensive as yours. But the thing I've been noticing and the thing that we're trying to do as a part of this show has always been, look, folks in crypto don't necessarily look at it the way we are looking at it. And for this market to truly grow, we need the traditional finance understanding and over time adoption, right? Similar story, by the way, in 2017-18 timeframe, I actually worked on a decentralized exchange focusing on security tokens. Again, the underlying technology didn't truly work. Shortly after T0 raised money, etc., and it was a realization that, hey, the user experience sucks so much that CLOBs can't work, and of course, very soon AMMs came around. But anyways, going back to your point, obviously
there was really only one or two CLOBs back then.
Exactly, there were only a couple: Fork Delta, Ether Delta, etc. Right? And the user experience was terrible. You would trade, and you would wait 10 minutes while the market moved, and you would pay $50. It was wild times, to say the least.
That sounds crazy.
So obviously, again, from our perspective as a crypto guy, some of these deals that Avalanche is doing, the volume is incredible. The number of announcements of partnerships and actual substantive partnerships is amazing. But again, I kind of want to go back to that, right? So obviously, you were part of the KKR deal. Huge news, right? I almost want to say the crypto world does not understand how critical that is for real world adoption. But we kind of wanted to ask you, we now know the regulatory cycle is kicking off. My view is that it's a good thing, but besides the regulatory angle, what do you think is going to be the biggest hurdles for this technology to be adopted and this market to grow tenfold, maybe 100-fold?
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier. The UI wasn't great for those early CLOBs. The reality is the user experience right now for a Web 2 person in anything that is in Web 3, frankly, is not that great. Maybe to a crypto native like us who've done and dealt with this space for a long time, we've gotten used to it. The quirkiness is our friend. We like it almost. But to the average person, frankly, they want, one-click Amazon e-commerce, kind of experience. And they don't want to have any of the worrying behind the scenes, and they want it instantaneously. So besides regulation, because you said besides regulation, I think a lot of companies are moving towards creating a better experience for users.
I almost want to say Web 2 has created the habit of expecting instant gratification, and crypto in my opinion, digital assets overall has been lacking more on that front, more than anything else. I guess the second part of this question is maybe, obviously last year was a crazy year, right? I've been around a few cycles, not many. You obviously have been around a few cycles, so we know that the volatility occurs. But how do you see crypto growing here? How do you see the liquidity, et cetera, changing from this point on? And particularly, how do you see Avalanche, making its mark?
Right. So for companies in this space, first, you just keep doing what you've been already doing. If you're a real company with a mission and a goal, you keep building. You keep in this. In a weird way, this is an execution environment that developers actually can like a lot, because they don't have the noise of the markets around them, and they can just focus on developing and doing what they want to do. We as operators still want to attract the best projects out there. You always need best projects to come and land on your chain. So for the operator's perspective and the developer perspective, I want to see amazing startups like yours. I want to see great innovation, and just continue doing that. Reality is there'll be fewer of us doing it, but that's natural. That we've seen that in every cycle. Excitement with cheap capital invites a lot of, I don't want to say tourists or fakers, but it invites a lot of interest. And unfortunately, some of those people who run the gauntlet are either fakers or they just don't make it to the end. But out the end of the tunnel, I think we're all doing this because we believe we can make things better, smoother, easier, better experience, and get more people involved.
We kind of call them rotators, right? You rotate from one hype to the other, to the other, to the other, until, most of the folks that I've known who asked me about where is the latest hype sort of disappeared now, right? Because hype eventually disappears, but the technology stays, quality teams stay, and then, building is perpetual, if you will. And I guess one thing to emphasize here, right? There are different types of companies out there, and throughout the bear, Avalabs has been growing, right? You just mentioned it. You started when it was 10 people, maybe even less, and then now you're at around 250. I know there are open developer relationship roles to continue the community outreach, to continue to support the developers, which again, guys, out there, if you're looking for who is positioned to come out of this market, who is positioned to come out strong in the next cycle, I mean, look no further than Avalabs and Avalanche, in my opinion. I guess in the same vein, I know that Avalabs is doing a lot of things on a lot of fronts, but where do you think the next wave of users are going to arrive from? Like, what do you think is the vertical that is truly going to propel the users to make that leap of faith, or come down the rabbit hole, as we call it?
Right.
So I think, phrase what you just said in a different way is, where is the adoption in mass going to come from?
Yeah.
And if you define it as users or you define it as dollars, I think from dollars, it will come from traditional finance, tokenizing assets. But from users, because the volume of users, I think gaming is a vertical that's huge potential.
Yeah.
And there's about 3 billion gamers out there in the traditional world. We just announced a deal with a gaming franchise, a very large gaming franchise. We can go into that if you want to. But I think that is a natural fit in terms of demographic and also in terms of utility. That Web 2 gaming can either become Web 2.5 or Web 3 at some point.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think, maybe again, the volume of partnerships that folks are choosing Avalanche is so high that sometimes some of our folks don't understand the gravity and the size of some of these announcements. TSM, one of the bigger e-gaming platforms, actually chose Avalanche, right? That's huge news. I forget the amount of gamers that follow that brand. I think I saw a number like 30 million, if I remember correctly. Amazing news. I think again, people need to focus on these types of announcements, what these projects are doing with Avalanche, and I think everything will sort of work itself out in the future.
If I may, I'll go into little details on that.
Please, we would love to. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, TSM is, I think, the first large gaming franchise to really take advantage of the blockchain technology. I think it could be a watershed moment. It's very important. And people need to know what TSM is. TSM is a large gaming brand, as you said, but it's a esports brand that has 100 professional players in games like League of Legends, Fortnite, etc. And it has, you're right, 30 million in the Blitz wallet, which is their existing Web2 wallet, but it has like 200 million unique followers of casual gamers, not the professional 100,
Right.
as well as fans who watch it on Twitch and other things. It is a gigantic brand. And why they are doing this is very interesting. They're doing this because the gamers themselves, the casual gamers and the watchers of this want it. They want it probably more than the publishers want it. And they want it because right now in the traditional world of gaming and Web3 or Web2, they don't really get to own their assets. And why is that important? Because they are in if they're playing 4 or 5 different games, their assets are in different closed loop circles. So there's no fungibility of those things. And even if it's not about fungibility, it's about like taking your money out of one in order to go and allocate it towards something else. It's very hard for them to do. It takes time, and the credit card processing fees and other fees embedded into the games takes a lot of money. If you put this on an Avalanche blockchain or a subnet, and you create a new wallet, not the Blitz wallet, the new wallet for TSM, it will allow these users to actually have interoperability of their assets. They can literally now use this as the one wallet to access all of their games in the future. And that leads to a lot of other benefits as well. No, not just dollars, but also speed of interaction, but also possibly more engagement. I mean, gaming is fascinating because I think gaming is similar to crypto. The audience is very, very engaged.
Yes.
If you look at, you mentioned the 30 million user number in the existing old wallet. I mean, I think their monthlies are like 8 million. So that's like almost 25%, conversion. That is huge for any business out there. Now, I think ultimately this will also benefit the publishers, people who make the games, because what all of these gamers hate is those, effectively it's like advertising in TV, those microtransactions that pop up while you're playing a game. No gamer wants to be interrupted, right? So the publishers right now have had a hard time trying to monetize that huge engagement. I mean, the gaming industry is over $300 billion of gross revenue. That's bigger than the movie industry, but yet it could be even be bigger because they're based on an engagement level and number of people involved. It is actually a per capita basis smaller than the movie industry, and that's because it's hard to monetize it. Now, if you're a clever publisher and you see what's happening and you move part of your game onto Avalanche subnet, which is blockchain as a service, you can actually figure out creative new business and revenue models to monetize that without destroying the user experience. I mean, we have a AAA publisher game like Shrapnel. Now, Shrapnel is already deploying a subnet. They are thinking, well, okay, maybe we could do freemium games so that the users enjoy it, but at the same time, they can monetize secondary trading of in-game assets that you can't anywhere else. So therefore, okay, you have to allow them to make money to create great games.
Yes.
But now there's a way to do it on a blockchain.
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible. Funny enough, I had a conversation about this with my wife, and I was explaining, look, imagine you buy a bag. It's obviously an investment, but it's not a liquid investment that you can move around. Gaming is kind of like that in Web 2. You invest a lot of time, effort, blood, tears, whatever. In the case of Jimmy, God knows what else. And that stays with that game. And once you're done with it, it can't move on to the other. Maybe you earned a tiny amount of skills, but it doesn't translate. And Web3 and partnership like this, where you start owning the assets, open it up, right? It's an industry that honestly, or I should say it's an economy that didn't even exist. Now, blockchain and Web3, and especially high throughput, high capacity blockchains like Avalanche is going to allow that to exist. And similar to the Avalanche blockchain's deflationary mechanics, if you do nothing else, if you use your own token in a deflationary manner, you can create value in a sustainable environment. Yeah, right. Your supply is reducing, your token is being used. I mean, it's just a new world that's like you said, watershed moment. When we get there, everybody's going to realize, oh my God, right?
Well,
we're still
who's
early.
a better gamer, you or your wife?
Depends on the game. And I think the right answer is probably going to be my wife in every game. You know,
well,
like this is recorded.
To piggyback onto what you're saying, though, I mean, if I could earn money playing Elden Ring, I'd be a very rich man by now. You know what I mean? But
exactly.
In terms of gaming, you know, we do some gaming here on our Twitch channel, and guys, just so you know, we are going to be reinstituting Dexalot Got Game very soon. But it's one of those things where I'm a gamer first before I got into crypto. So everything that you're saying really resonates with me, because coming from the gaming world, yeah, I mean, I know all the biases. I know, you know, the kind of the stigmas that kind of surround crypto and NFTs when we're talking about gaming. And I can tell you the conversations that gamers have talking about these kind of things. You're absolutely right. They don't want that kind of stuff. So everything you're saying, it's a watershed moment. It's a game-changing moment, because somebody who's from my world of gaming comes into Web3 and doesn't want to deal it. It's like you're saying, we want it to be as easy as possible. And Avalanche is streamlining the process in a way where you have TSM, a huge entity like TSM coming in and using Avalanche.
People need to understand TSM like the Yankees as a brand in esports.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just so huge.
I guess, you know, this brings up the point. So watershed moment coming up, which implies we're still early, right? What are the other things that you think will eventually cause us not to say we're no longer early, now we're in the growth stage? Like what do you think needs to happen so that we can't use the slogan, it's never too late to be early anymore?
It's so funny you asked me that, because someone else asked me that today, and they were like giving me charts of iPhone adoption, giving me charts of how many people are using ChatGPT, and then saying like that 3 to 5 year timeframes when they got to this number or that number, and why is crypto not there yet? The answer is like, well, how do you define the beginning of an era? Like, since crypto, maybe 15 years ago because of Bitcoin, but since advanced protocols, this generation of protocols with the smart contract real functioning, it's still only 4 or 5 years, right? So, and I remind her, like, you know, or this person, like, your iPhone starting point didn't include iPod, the music thing, because that was the forerunner before people even did the first iPhone. So it depends on where you start. But I think from where I sit as an operator now and seeing all the momentum, you know, in fairness, a lot of the issues that we had in the space last year is going to slow down some of the momentum, not completely. The operating side continues to go, like we just said. I think in the next 5 years, something exponential will happen, because the functionality is starting to happen. And we're going higher up in the stack as we talk about utility. And once you bring utility in and usability in, that's when you can get mass adoption.
Okay. I think that makes perfect sense. We have a very good number of questions in the chat. I only want to ask one, because I think this fits squarely in some of your, like, you know, speeches that we've seen. In terms of the real world backed assets, or tokenized real world assets, you know, what is the latest in this space, and why does this matter? We really want to hear this from you on our channel, I guess.
I mean, it matters a lot, because there's $700 trillion before the 2022 sell-off. So maybe there's still 500 trillion of assets out there in the traditional world that maybe half of it is private and hard to find. So it could be tokenized to make it easier. That's why it matters. But, you know, what we're seeing is after Avalabs helped tokenize part of that KKR healthcare fund, every major US firm, that asset management firm, was calling us to say, how does this work? How can we do it? What are the benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Frankly, after the scandals and the issues we've seen the back half of 2022, a lot of the US companies have held off a bit or paused, because they want to see what's the definition of a security before they step further in.
Sure.
They have been, but what they've done is gone full on more with the private networks and the private blockchains. You know, JP Morgan has, with MAS and DBS have, you know, tokenized 4 billion of assets in a private blockchain. Siemens in Europe has tokenized a $60 million fixed income bond, the entire process on the blockchain. And because A, it's legal there, and B, they're getting the benefits of the reconciliation benefits that you would have to do in a traditional world. So what I hope, Firestorm, that doesn't happen is a lot of these calls start coming from non-US firms. But frankly, the real world assets continues perhaps elsewhere and on the private blockchain.
I mean, I kind of think that even if it comes out from other jurisdictions, right? Absolutely, I don't want this. I live in the US. I believe that we need to be at the forefront of this technology and all that good stuff. But I think if it happens, and if US ends up playing catch up, it will still happen for the US as well. Like, obviously, we've all been tracking what's happening with respect to the regulators. And I guess, what is your view on our role as well as the regulators' role in informing the politicians? Because, you know, regulators operate, obviously they have a mandate, but they operate within their own jurisdiction. But the true adoption needs to be protected and supported by the laws. And as you said, a lot of countries out there are a lot more forward in this. But how do you think we should help this process forward in the US particularly?
I think participate just like Brian Armstrong is doing right now. You know, actively try to create a dialogue and hope that there will be listening as well as speaking on both sides. That's the best thing to do. And from the other thing as operators, continue to provide utility, whether that be tokenizing funds or whether by giving a better experience for gamers who want, you know, easier access to their closed loop assets, whatever it is. At some point in every industry, if the people want it, ultimately the people who control the laws have to also figure out a way to make it happen.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Agreed. Okay. We have one question that actually was submitted ahead of time. I would like to hit that one as well. So how do you think the subnets could be part of your learn, earn, and give back program? Like, how do you see that? How can that happen, actually?
So that's an interesting question. So what do you mean by learn, earn, and give back? Let me ask you that first.
So, I mean, like this was, if I understand, this is part of your recipe or part of your program that you sort of push forward. And I'm just trying to understand if subnets can be incorporated in be part of this like overarching goal and, you know, make Web3 part of this type of a much more noble goal. Because what we've seen in Web3 has been DeFi, trading, yield farming, etc. And I think the other side is quite lacking for the moment. Anyways, I have seen a couple of projects.
Well, the reason I asked that is because,
yeah.
you know, I've used that learn, earn, and give back not in the context of subnets. So I was wondering if you were quoting me from somewhere. But whenever I speak with young students from my universities or just general people who are enthusiastic about starting a career, you know, they ask what jobs I should take and how should I think about my career. I always say, break it down into thirds. You know, if two jobs are equally, you know, exciting to you and, you know, one may be giving you a little more money, choose the one that you think you'll learn the most. So the first third of your career should be learning. And then after there's a point in your life where you learn a lot and it's time to put the learning to work, and then you choose the job that gives you more earning. But in the early stages, you should focus on learning. And then at some point, the third stage is you should continue to share and give back your knowledge with the younger generation and pay forward or pay back, whatever, however you want to define forward and back based on age or to a pool. That's what I was thinking when you say learn, earn, and give back, because this is how I give advice to young aspiring people, whether it's in this industry or other industries. Now, from the subnet perspective, very interesting. I think what you can do simply is the give back part is very simple. It could be a more effective way to create maybe some sort of DAO and create a community where they can create a charity with specific causes, maybe create a greenfield situation where they can vote constantly. Very fascinating thing I read recently. There's a thing called Polis. And this is actually happening in the small country of Taiwan, 21 million people or so. Basically, the population actually can call different rules and regulations, and if they can get 60% of the vote, then the legislature is obligated to create a law that enables that to happen. So it's almost a direct democracy as opposed to what we have here as a republic, where you hope the intermediary will do what they think is right for you. So, learn, earn, and give back. Or how about, like, maybe create a DAO that is charitable or something to give back, and maybe you can even create new ways to organize and govern people.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how critically important that idea actually is, because once you said that, I kind of connected it with what's happening in Turkey, right? There was a devastating earthquake, which obviously Avalabs actually, and Avalanche Foundation, I believe, was the first to come out in the crypto ecosystem and support the corrective measures and assistance that was being given to Turkey. And one of the biggest things that's happening there now is a lot of money has been collected. The transparency around how it's going to get used or where it's going to get used is a big issue. People don't know. Everybody's asking. Everybody's fighting with each other. There is no democratic or efficient or transparent way of doing it. And maybe this type of an idea where the charitable activity is recorded on a blockchain, you get transparency. It's on a subnet, which is philanthropy specific, right? Makes it transparent, and maybe it even eventually evolves into like a voting mechanism of some sort. So very, very cool. Again, as you sort of peel the onion with what's possible with this technology and the advantages it gives you over Web 2, the ideas are endless. I guess I've been a subscriber of Gun for a long time as well. I think on his Twitter, if I remember the pinned tweet, I haven't looked at it in a while, but one of his pinned tweet actually said, so many academics forget that our goal as a profession is not to publish papers, and it's actually to change the world. What's your opinion on the statement? Because obviously he comes from academia, and now he's pushing this agenda and this new technology with you to change the world. What's your take on that? I mean, it's so right and so true.
If you're a academic who likes to publish papers, just no disrespect for that. I think there's an incredible amount of great research being done on all the universities that are research oriented in this country. A lot of those lead to pragmatic applications, but I think Gun takes it. What's great about Gun is not only is he a great researcher, great mind, and great academic, but he's able to translate that into a direct application. And that's what's made him great at, in crypto, blockchain, distributed systems, and made him who he is and what Avalabs is today. Like, there's a lot of great academics that can't cross that chasm. He's not one of them. So I do not want to dishearten great researchers, because the stuff they do is the foundation and backbone for great innovation. Maybe someone else takes it to the goalpost, but the perfect beast would be the person who starts that and completes it.
I can't tell you, like, literally, if people miss all the other sections, I think this is a part that, they should, see. Maybe we clip it. Gun built a bunch of stuff, right? He actually has a lot of followers and a lot of haters. When you have a lot of haters, you clearly built some stuff, you rattled some cages, and you probably innovated. That's kind of how I look at it. If one day we have Gun on the show, we'll ask him about all the stuff he built before Avalabs, even, because we obviously know how Avalanche is working.
He's got a lot of proponents, because he's done a lot of great things, and Avalabs has done a lot of great things, and he's been a world-class scientist. Some of the detractors, Gun is a scientist still. He believes in real math and real thought. And sometimes he needs to point out when things in technology don't make sense. And unfortunately, that will hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, like, over the course of the years, Avalanche and the underlying technology is sort of the culmination of all the things he believed could be done better. And then he built, like, he basically put his money where his mouth is, and did the research, been a scientist, taught it to a lot of people, and now we're at the build phase together with you and the rest of the team. It's been built and it's being pushed forward. It's quite fascinating and quite impressive, to say the least. Anyways, I'm becoming too much of a fanboy for you guys. I'll let Jimmy ask some stuff too if he has any questions.
No, you're all good, Firestorm. I mean, John, what you were just saying, I mean, it actually is something that I think I may have heard you say this on a space before. And if it wasn't you, forgive me, but it's that crypto people build stuff for other crypto people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's what sets Avalabs apart and Avalanche apart is that you guys are building for a community, a user experience, and you're not just looking at what a crypto person would want to do. And to me, that's the key. That's the real key and why Avalanche has such a strong community, because that's the big focus, right? So
that's correct.
Yeah.
Crypto people build things for other crypto people for two reasons. One, because they think it's cool and that's their demographic and they're not able to see out of that. Another reason is because the technology is composable. So conceptually, what you're doing is you're building upon what others have built, and you're okay that others build upon what you build. You're not saying this is the end product, I have to get there today. You're saying, how do I make it incrementally better? So you build on top of something else, and that composability hopefully ends somewhere where there's massive utility for everyone. But to shorten that, sometimes you need people who are like good in academics, a little more pragmatic, and say, how do we do it more efficiently and get there faster?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Just a couple more short questions from me, if you wouldn't mind. First, this is like a milestone for us. So would you ever consider coming back to In the CLOB and talking to us about
I love these. These are enjoyable. It's so much fun to just have free-flowing conversation and, totally.
Awesome, man. That's great. And my second request, we kind of gave you a heads up on this, but we do a little bit of music at the end of the show. I mean, like I said, we have kind of a pun. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
It's easy. I know what you're going to ask.
Yeah. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear you play? What are we doing?
I don't know if you have it though. It's maybe too old school for you.
You would be surprised. Firestorm, you tell him, man. Tell him.
Man, like every now and then I like he stomps on me now because I tried to break his DJ capabilities many times. I tried heavy metal. I tried random stuff. He always has it, and he always manages to work it. So,
but you know what?
Feel free.
We did get stumped one time, right? I think I did get stumped by your buddy that we had on Firestorm. I may have gotten stumped before, but what do you got, John? I'm ready for it.
How about Temple of Dog Hunger Strike?
Let's go. Come on. Yes, let's go. Temple of the Dog. That's an awesome request. That I wasn't expecting that. And so I thank you for the awesome request, John, because we're going to get some Temple of the Dog on for you to take us out.
Awesome.
But John Wu, thank you so much for joining us today. The chat appreciates it. We appreciate it. The Dexalot team appreciates Avalabs and everything you guys are doing. And this has just been awesome, man.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for coming, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, John. Take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Salute.